Right, so I put up a Facebook status earlier saying that I was going to do a request video, and I got loads and loads and loads of good ideas for video topics. So I thought rather than doing one particular, I was going to try and rattle through as many of the questions as possible. I'll probably have to spend, about a minute or so on each one because I've got quite a few in. So this is kind of not so much a request video, more kind of any questions answer video. The first one I got was actually not via my Facebook, which is where I put the message up, but was on a YouTube comment which said, how do you rate Tyson Fury in the context of being an all-time great? Does he need to do more to get into that conversation? And yeah, for my money, he definitely does. You guys know that I'm a massive, massive fan of Tyson Fury. I certainly rate Vladimir Klitschko as a top 10 all-time great heavyweight. But simply beating a top 10 all-time great heavyweight does not make you a top 10 all-time great heavyweight. Otherwise, anyone who ever scored a victory over Muhammad Ali or Lennox Lewis or one of those guys would have to be in the context of the conversation. Tyson Fury is a young man who shows supreme talent, and I have no doubt that in this modern era of heavyweight boxing, there is the potential for him to go on to be a top 10 all-time great heavyweight. If Tyson Fury were to beat Deontay Wilder, David Haye, Anthony Joshua, Alexander Povetkin, Joseph Parker, he'd be in that conversation. But at present, he hasn't had the longevity as a champion, and he hasn't had the number of grade A fights he needs to put him in that conversation. He's some way off for my money. But he's certainly got the potential to get there. He's got a marquee win already over an undefeated champion for 10 years who was a dominant player, and as I say, who I consider to be a top 10 all-time great heavyweight. In time, if he's good enough, that accolade will come. Now, let's move on to some of the other topics that come through. Tom said, DeGale versus Groves, who wins and why? For me, at the minute, it's James DeGale. George Groves looks to have regressed massively since he left Adam Booth. I'm not someone who necessarily buys into the fact that he's been cobraed. I think it's more to do with the fact he's left Adam Booth and had too many other outside interests outside of the ring. James DeGale is a good fighter. He's probably the #1 super middleweight out there right now. And the way George Groves seems to have regressed, and the way James DeGale seems to have improved since they fought, I'd certainly make DeGale a strong favourite. DeGale's someone who insisted that poor performances earlier on in his career had been due to injury, and whether you believe that or not, you'd have to say that since that injury was supposedly fixed, the standard of his performances gone up and up and up and up. So I'd be with James DeGale right now. Michael says Frampton versus Santa Cruz. For me, that's a close fight. It could go either way. I'd be inclined to stay with Santa Cruz. I think Santa Cruz is an underrated fighter based on the fact that people don't like his resume and the opponents he's been in with. I mean, by all means, you can make an argument he's got a largely padded record, but that doesn't make him a bad fighter. He's a powerful guy. He's a guy who brings huge size and range in the division, given the weight he fights at. And I think that he can present Carl Frampton with a much bigger challenge than Scott Quigg did. He's got a hugely high punch output, Leo Santa Cruz, and I just think that moving up in weight again for Carl Frampton against the much naturally bigger man who's got the punching output and sort of bullying style of Leo Santa Cruz may not play well to Carl Frampton's strengths. There is the risk that Carl Frampton could outbox him, but with Santa Cruz's range and with his output, Frampton himself would need to do a lot more than he did against Scott Quigg, and so a real tight fight could go either way. But I'd side with Leo Santa Cruz at this stage. Rob says, do a rise and fall section, fighters that got to the top and quickly became no one. Sorry, I probably should have thought about that actually before I started doing that. I might come back to that one, Rob. James, there's going to be a lot of big heavyweight fights in the near future. What do you think the heavyweight division will look like 12 months from now with regards to champions and who will have lost on their record? Well, the big fights, Wilder versus Povetkin. At present, I make Povetkin a favourite in that fight due to Wilder's defensive ineptitude. Tyson Fury versus Vladimir Klitschko. That's a huge fight. Don't be too quick to write Vladimir off, but I'd make Fury a favourite in that fight. Lucas Brown versus Fraser Quendo. I'd make Lucas Brown a big favourite in that. Joshua versus Charles Martin, tight fight. I need to look into that one a bit more. I'm thinking I'm more inclined to side with Joshua than Martin at present. So I'm thinking that by the end of the year, balance of probabilities will have Fury, Povetkin, Joshua, and Lucas Brown as the sort of championship type fighters. Maybe Luis Ortiz if you want to include interim titles and things of that nature. I think Luis Ortiz will certainly beat Ustinov. So I think Deontay Wilder and Charles Martin will be the ones to lose their unbeaten resumes. Rahul, what will be the next fight to attract global interest on the scale of Mayweather Pacquiao or close to that level? I don't think there will be one, to be honest. I can't see one really out there. I think the only way that a fight of that magnitude comes back is if Mayweather comes out of retirement, to be frank. Does this show that the sport is in decline? Not necessarily. I think that it takes a while to build up to a fight like that. And I think because of the amount of time it takes to build up to a matchup like that, there always needs to be a big break in between the two. Rick, what do you think about the changes to boxing in the Olympics, head guard and pros? I don't really know enough about the head guard situation to comment. I don't have a strong opinion as to whether head guards are positives or negatives. As for the pros in the Olympics, I think it's ridiculous. I think it really sort of spoils the Olympics for young up-and-coming amateurs. If a sort of very, very experienced professional boxer with 40 pro fights at world title level gets in there, how does a young amateur have a chance of winning a gold medal? Daniel Archer wants to know my opinion on Joshua versus Martin. Real tight fight. I think it's a big step up for Joshua. I think Martin brings power, the southpaw stance. He brings great judgment of range. He brings versatility, and I think it's a tough fight. My initial instinct is that Joshua deserves to be a slight favourite based on the eye test alone. But it's something I need to think of a lot more. Have a look. Daniel says Hearn versus Warren exhibition bout. Who wins? I think I'd go with Eddie Hearn. I met Eddie Hearn, and he's a very, very, very big man, and he's quite a bit younger than Big Frank as well. Eubank versus Benn 3. Will it happen? Should it happen? Should it happen? Definitely not. Will it happen? Definitely not. For me, if a fight is going to be made, it gets made in a timely fashion. And when a fight has been talked about for as long as this, I begin to sort of lose interest and lose belief that it could possibly happen. Look, I've been wrong before. I didn't think Mayweather Pacquiao would happen, to be honest. So, I wouldn't write it off. But, personally, I just don't see it. I don't see it happening. The guys need to focus on collecting their pension now rather than having a fight for me. Alex, do you think the long wait for the Tyson versus Vladimir rematch will play into Vladimir's hands as Tyson is drinking and will get out of shape? No, I think people are and I'm not speaking to you directly here, Alex, I'm saying people in general. People are very, very inconsistent with their thoughts on the Tyson Fury Vladimir matchup. So the same people who say Tyson Fury beat Vladimir because Vladimir got old overnight are now saying that Vladimir's going to beat Tyson Fury because Vladimir's letting Tyson Fury get out of shape. Firstly, let's not forget that if Vladimir Klitschko did get older overnight, he's now going to be, 7-8 months older? 200 days older than when he was last time out. So if he was so old and frail and decrepit when they last fought, he's going to be even older this time round. So I don't think the delay plays into Vladimir's hands whatsoever. Father Time, as they say, is undefeated in boxing, and it's going to be creeping up on Vladimir by the day. Secondly, as for Tyson Fury drinking and getting out of shape, I've been critical before. I don't think it's good for Tyson Fury in the long run that he keeps blowing up so much between fights. I actually don't think he has blown up in this, in the gap between this fight as much as I've seen him blow up previously when he's got himself into really, really, really bad condition. So, I think it's slightly overstated this time around. But look, Tyson Fury's the champion of the world. He won't have to agree to a fight unless he unless he really needs to. You know, he's going to be able to build in time for an 8-week camp, surely. I mean, Vladimir's not going to be able to get him on short notice and insist on a date in April. That's just not how it works. So, you know, although the negotiations may be taking some time, I'm sure there's going to be enough time built in for for Fury to get his full camp in. And yeah, whilst I would rather see him keeping slightly more disciplined condition while he's out of the ring, you know, that is a concern of mine. He was in a lot worse shape last time out and it didn't affect him. So maybe as he's still a younger man, he can get away with it. Anyway, thanks very much for all your questions. I didn't want to pick one because they were all very, very, very good, I thought. But yeah, there we go. Let me know your thoughts. Many thanks as always for watching.